Hello mathematicians, welcome back to Number Corner. For Number Corner today, we will be reading and interpreting our fourth graph from our calendar grid. To read and interpret our graph today, you will need your whiteboard, marker, and an eraser. If you don't have a whiteboard, a piece of paper and a pencil will work just fine. You can pause the video now to get what you need. Our graph today looks like this. Take a moment to look at our graph and think about what you notice. You may have noticed a few different things. You may have noticed our title at the top. We've seen this before on our other graphs. You may also have noticed number of students. We've seen this on our other graphs too. You may have noticed a picture of a bicycle and a picture of a skateboard. Show a connection if you noticed the numbers on the bottom. What are these numbers skip counting by? These numbers are skip counting by fives. Now that's something important that I'd like you to keep tucked in your brain. We're going to come back to that later. Let's move on to think about what we think the survey question was for this graph. Remember, when we have a graph, we're collecting data. Data is information. To get information or data, we usually ask a question to figure out what we want to know. What question are we asking for this graph? Now you may have a few different ideas. Some of your ideas might have been, what do you like better, skateboarding or biking? Maybe you thought, what would you rather ride, a skateboard or a bike? You might have some different ideas too, but these are pretty good ideas of what our survey question probably was. Is this a picture graph or a bar graph? Show a connection if you think this is a picture graph. Show a connection if you think this is a bar graph. This is a tricky one. We are looking at a bar graph. Even though we see pictures on the side, our data or information is being shown with bars that are filled in. What should we title this graph? Remember, our survey question is what do you like better, skateboarding or biking? Or what would you rather ride, a skateboard or a bike? What would be a good title? Now you may have had some different ideas. Maybe you were thinking, well, this could be a favorite activity. Or maybe your favorite wheels. Either one will work. Let's move on to answering a few more questions about our data using our whiteboards. Now we already have our title, favorite wheels, our survey question, would you rather ride a skateboard or a bike? And we know that this is a bar graph. Now, when we're looking at our bar graph, what does each space stand for? This is where our numbers at the bottom become really important. What does each space stand for? Now you may have been thinking, well, that stands for the students that either chose biking or skateboarding? The important thing to know is that each space counts 5 students. Show a connection if that's what you were thinking. Yeah, that's how this bar graph is a little different than the graphs we've looked at before. We are looking at more than one student choice at a time. How many students participated in this survey? The numbers are really important for this question too. I want you to use your whiteboard and marker and write an equation to show how many students participated in this survey. Remember, our equation will be on one of these 4 calendar markers that match our graph. Which one makes the most sense for your equation? If you are thinking that 10 plus 15 equals something makes the most sense, and that's the equation you wrote, good thinking. The number 10 shows how many students chose skateboarding. The number 15 shows how many students chose biking. When we add those numbers together, we know that 25 students participated in this survey. How many fewer students chose skateboarding than biking? Write an equation to represent how many fewer students chose skateboarding than biking on your whiteboards. Use one of our calendar markers to help you. Show a connection if you wrote the equation 15 minus 10 equals something. Good thinking. We know that we have 15 students that chose biking. More students chose biking. We want to take away how many students chose skateboarding. 10 students chose skateboarding. 15 minus 10 leaves 5 students. Now I want you to think. What questions do the remaining equations represent? What does 25 minus 10 equals something represent? What does 15 plus something equals 25 represent? What are our numbers telling us? Now, if you were thinking 25 minus 10 equals something represents how many students chose biking. Good thinking. Take a moment to write this equation and solve it. Now I want you to think, what does our last equation of 15 plus something equals 25 represent? If you were thinking 15 plus something equals 25 represents how many students chose skateboarding, show a connection. That's good thinking. I want you to write this equation and solve it. Show a connection if you have the same answer as I do. Good thinking. Thank you for interpreting this graph with me today to show your teacher that you did this hard work and hard thinking with me. I have another super secret password to share with you to show your teacher you did this work. When you go to Seesaw, you'll be asked to type in the super secret password of skateboard. Type that into Seesaw to show your teacher you're all done with your Number Corner work for today. I'll see you next time in Number Corner.